We've got a rock'em sock'em show for you. We're going to look at charter schools and who are their enemies, and the coming open war between Tea Party activists and the Republican establishment. That and much more on The Voice of Resistance.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
I'd like to talk with you about charter schools, all right? Because there's some really good things happening with charter schools. But before I do that, let me have my own little disclaimer, all right? Number one, I do not believe in government schools. Anybody who watches this show regularly knows that. I don't believe it's ethically right, and I don't believe certainly that it reflects our Constitution to point a gun at your neighbor's head and to force him to pay for your child's education, which is in effect what most government schools are. Number three, I don't believe that the government should have the right to steal your home and to force you to pay for other people's education. Because in most school districts in America, the schools are funded by property tax. And if you don't pay that property tax, they will take your home. That makes you a glorified squatter, all right? Sort of like a highbrow, well-dressed serf. Having said that, and a few other misgivings I have with charter schools, I am now prepared to give the devil his due. Or put another way, if you do have a galley slave ship that is full of slaves, I don't believe in galley slave ships, but if you've got them, then at least the slaves should have proper food, proper water, proper sanitation, right? Ventilation, etc. So let's talk about some of the successes of charter schools. In quick terms, in broad brushes, charter schools emerged in the early 90s. The first charter schools were in Minnesota, and they've grown exponentially since then. They were a key part of President Bush II's No Child Left Behind policy. And basically what a charter school is a way for tax money to be used as an alternative to the current public school in the area. And they became exceptionally popular, and still are, in areas where the public school had abysmal testing scores, all right? So for the parents who did not have the resources economically or the creativity or the willpower to homeschool, or did not have a Catholic parochial school with free or low tuition in the area, or the parents who couldn't afford or didn't want to put their children in an evangelical Christian school, charter schools offered an option. And basically, and this varies from state to state, but basically what separates a charter school from a public school, even though it's using tax money, just like a public school, is that they are exempt from some of the rules and regulations, either at the state level or the federal level. And in many cases, they are not required to hire teachers that are part of a union. Keep that little tidbit in your mind, all right? All right, now let's go to the good news. For example, in New York City, when Mayor Bloomberg, who I despise as a public figure, when Bloomberg came to the office in the early 2000s, there were 17 charter schools in New York City. When he left, there were over 150, and some 70+ thousand kids were enrolled in them out of the New York City school system. Now, to show their success, in citywide testing, 30% of the children in the public schools had proper math scores for the grade that they were in. Only 30%. But in the charter schools in New York City, the number was 82%. In language arts, the average child in New York City school system, public school, was at 28%. But in the charter schools, they were at 58%. Again, different rules, different curriculum. Some of them have longer school days. Some of them have longer school years. They're exempt from certain state and federal regulations. And again, they don't have unionized teachers. Well, there came to power a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. Mayor Bill de Blasio. Yes, Bloomberg was a Republican and de Blasio is a Democrat. And one of his first decisions was to revoke the charter school status of 3 schools in New York City, one of them in Harlem, by the way, that happened to share a building with a government school. Now, why would he do that? It's really simple. He believes in unions. The teachers in New York City are not, in the charter schools, are not a part of the union. And so the union president for New York City, Michael Mulgrew, he is praising the mayor for beginning to rein in these charter schools. And what does that tell you? That the mayor and that teachers union, they're not concerned about the education of children. Because if they were, they would want as many charter schools as possible. Let them share the building. No. This is about party politics. The education and the welfare of these children be darned. Mr. Mayor, you should be ashamed of yourself for using children's lives for your political, partisan agenda. In this decision, you have been a disgusting mayor. And let's just watch the backlash, folks, because this is not over. This is going to become national news, similar to what happened in Arizona. We'll see what happens. This is the voice of resistance.
You have 2 choices. I mean, you can try to raise your children by design, or you will raise them by default. There are no perfect parents. We're going to get it wrong sometimes. If we have a plan, we've got a better chance of getting it right in the long run.
There is something deep within the heart of every human being that longs for parental acceptance and approval. When does a boy become a man?
Get a group of guys around and ask them that question.
I don't think there's a certain age. Some men stay boys their whole life.
I would say, 16, 18 years old.
Wow, that's a good question.
When they get bar mitzvah.
Well, I think when he has a child. So I just became at 56, 56 years old.
Without the power of the Holy Spirit changing us and giving us power over our sin, we can't hope to be the dads that our kids need us to be.
Let's talk about the gateway to hell, the purveyors of evil. At points, the very mouthpiece of Satan. And, of course, they claim that they are providing women's health. Planned Parenthood. Yes, the nation's largest criminal syndicate, consistently involved in protecting pedophiles, child pornographers, child prostitution pimps. Okay? This is documented. These are wicked, evil people. And then, of course, they are the largest murderer of unborn babies in the country. So while the number of children dying every year is slowly going down, a little over 1 million a year, I beg your pardon, the number of babies dying in Planned Parenthood's abortion mills is increasing. They're well over 200,000 babies a year. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that for the leaders of Planned Parenthood, unless they repent and the Lord Jesus forgives them, that he has a plan for their eternity that involves a very warm cell next to some of the great tyrants of all history. But anyway, they need not fear, because John Boehner and other top Republicans in both the House and the Senate caved in to President Obama and to Joe Biden and agreed to keep funding them. Now, knowing Planned Parenthood like you do, you would assume at that point that they would be thankful, that they would be gracious, that they would return the favor. And they are. They are planning, their PAC, their Political Action Committee, is planning on spending $18 million in this election cycle to target Republican candidates. Now, I would say your tax dollars hard at work, but of course, they're not using your and my tax money for that. It's just our tax money helps free up Planned Parenthood to raise money to take out Republicans. So this year, they intend to spend $18 million in key Senate and House races in 14 different states. They recently punished Ken Cuccinelli, who stood a very good chance of winning the governorship in Virginia. He was a diehard conservative pro-lifer, and Planned Parenthood just beat him like a dirty rug, saying he was anti-woman, etc., etc. So they're going to use $18 million to try and keep the Senate in the hands of the Democrats and to keep pro-lifers either from winning races or to take them out. John Boehner, did you think this one through? Did you think this one through? When you just agreed to allow the federal government to be funded without any debate, to keep Planned Parenthood fully funded, with hundreds of millions of dollars from American taxpayers going to these butchers, did you think through that they were going to try and take out some Republicans? You know what I bet? I bet he thought it through. And I bet he doesn't care. And the reason he doesn't care, well, maybe he cares a little, but the decisions that he has made on when to fight and when to not fight show that his priorities and the priorities of other Republicans are terribly misguided, that their moral compass is terribly flawed. And if somebody's political compass is at odds with their moral compass, and they want to retain power at the cost of innocent blood, then that makes them a low-grade Herod. Because at the end of the day, Herod was willing to shed the blood of the innocent in order to keep power. The reason that Boehner and that other Republicans caved in to Obama and to Biden regarding the funding of Planned Parenthood when that fight took place, the reason they caved in was because they were afraid of the political backlash. They were afraid, Boehner was afraid that he would lose the majority in the House and he would lose his speakership. And so he made a calculated decision that he would rather retain power at the cost of innocent blood than to protect the babies and risk losing power. If that's not at least a waft of the scent of Herod, I don't know what is. This is the voice of resistance. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. There's about to be political blood in the streets. Well, maybe it'll be political tea. I don't know. The Tea Party activists are growing in strength, growing in numbers, and the feud between the Tea Party activists and the various Tea Party groups is now fully out in the open. The large Tea Party rally that recently happened in Washington, D.C. had luminaries such as Senator Ted Cruz from Texas and Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, both of whom are pondering a presidential run. And one of the leaders, I believe from Tea Party Express, said, "We don't need the Republican establishment's millions. We've got our own." Speaking of money. Well, it's become kind of hip right now to go after John Boehner. And if you've got your ear to the ground, there is a large amount of chatter going on in the internet world as well as in mainstream newspapers that Boehner may lose the speakership. Even if the House retains control, even if the Republicans maintain control of the House in 2014, there is a move afoot, an open rebellion, if you will, to get rid of Boehner. Representative Gomer from Texas the other day was speaking freely, I believe, in the Washington Post about the fact that there are people that are true conservatives, true Tea Party House members that are ready to see Boehner go. And so it's becoming kind of hip to go after Boehner in the conservative world. A friend of mine contacted me a couple days ago and said, "Hey, have you ever heard of such and such magazine, a magazine of a very large evangelical ministry?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Our picture is in there from when we did the sit-in at Boehner's office." Some of you may recall that right after Boehner took power, a group of us, about 10 or 12 of us, went and met with his chief of staff. And we said, "Listen, Boehner is on record saying he's pro-life, that the most important issue of the day is the killing of children. It's the fundamental issue of our times, and that he wants to defund Planned Parenthood." Okay? So we said, we're going to hold him to his word. And if he does not defund Planned Parenthood, we will run a primary against him, and we will become, basically we said, we'll become your adversary. We don't want that. We want to be friends. So, of course, Boehner betrayed us. But up until the very moment that Boehner betrayed us, every pro-life group in the country was singing his praises, what a great leader he was, dropping press releases. We know that he's going to stand with us. Meanwhile, except for us, as far as major pro-life groups, we were sending out press releases saying he's going to betray us. We have to be ready to hold his feet to the fire after the fact. Okay? And then guess what happened? He caved into Obama and restored funding to Planned Parenthood. And what did the pro-life groups in Washington, D.C. do? Nothing. They didn't send out a press release saying, "Mr. Boehner, you told us you would do this and you didn't do it." Now, look, some say, well, we don't want personal attacks against the speaker. No, this isn't a personal attack. Personal attacks are bad. I mean, if he kicks his dog or yells at his kids, fine, that's not a part of this. But when he goes against a public policy issue that involves life or death, then we have to hold his feet to the fire. Why didn't they? Photo ops. Listen to me. Your mailbox is full of letters from various Christian groups and neoconservative political groups who are always asking you to send money. You know what I know, right? When you open up a letter, most of them you throw in the garbage. 80% don't even get open. But the ones you do pop open, what's really cool? That's when you see one of the leaders of a ministry that you support or a political action committee standing with blank. Okay? I mean, I've done it. I have a picture with me and Pope John Paul II. I got a letter from Mother Teresa once when I was a prisoner in a federal prison. And I've showed those things to people because they're cool and they add legitimacy and they help with fundraising. They do. It's simply that. But the problem is if the person that you want the photo op with has betrayed everything you stand for, then it's no longer in the service of your mission to continue to want the photo op. Do you understand? And so, I know I'm over time, and I'm going to finish this quickly. Another huge Christian ministry recently met with Boehner and presented 45,000 signatures to say, you know, protect America's family, defund Planned Parenthood. And in their little publication, they said, and Boehner assured us that abortion is very important to him and he will continue his work to try and defund Planned Parenthood. What? I'm going to pop a blood vessel. What? And you print this? And you expect us to take you credibly? Never mind Boehner, but you expect us to take you seriously? After Boehner just betrayed us repeatedly? They wanted the photo op. They wanted the picture handing Boehner the petition so that they could say, and then we're continuing on, fighting for the causes that you believe in Washington, D.C. Send us money now. We need more discernment, and we need to recognize when there is a wolf in a sheep's clothing, both in the political realm and in the pseudo-religious realm where they're sending us the fundraising letters. Don't be deceived. You know a tree by its fruit. This is the voice of resistance. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. There's an old expression that a man is known by the company he keeps. There's a variation of it that says a man is known by the friends that he keeps. And then there's one that I really like. A man or a woman is known by the enemies he keeps. We have enemies. We do. We do. I mean, if we didn't, Jesus would not have said, love your enemies, all right? There are political enemies, and I'm speaking in the political realm. Some of us have personal enemies as well, always painful, always distasteful, and if people can get along and figure out how to forgive each other, great, all right? But when it comes to public policy battles, when it comes to who's going to control the definitions, the spending of government, the public policy of government, there are people that are at conflict. And when it comes down to fundamental issues like the murder of babies, or the proper definition or the perversion of marriage, or whether or not they will steal half of our wealth to fund their federal plantation and their state plantations. These things are so intrinsically opposed that there's no middle ground, all right? There's no common ground. I'm not going to agree that they could kill half the babies that they want. They're not going to agree for me to pass a law that I should be able to stop half those babies from being killed. You get it? There are some things where there is only one winner and there's one loser. Most of the pseudo-Christian world in the political realm right now is saying the right words, but does not have corresponding correct action. And that's why Jesus said it's about the fruit. There's an old expression, your actions are speaking so loud I can't hear what you're saying. Okay? We need people who don't only say the right thing, but do the right thing. And to do the right thing, you have to be willing to not only pay lip service to Thomas Jefferson or to Patrick Henry or to George Washington or to Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement or the warriors against slavery. You don't want to just quote them and pay lip service to them. You want to imitate their example, their courage, their sacrifice. We have created what we call euphemistically an online university to train leaders. I'm inviting you to go and to explore. And we have made everything available to you on that site that I've ever produced. TV shows, books, tapes, videos, everything is there for free. All right? So that you can not only pay lip service to the heroes, but so that you can become a courageous hero. This is the voice of resistance.